Hello, and welcome to a very special and very different episode of the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. I'm sat in the courtyard at St George's Park, the Football Association's National Football Centre, at their showcase event for the new introduction of the 3v3 format of the game at under sevens coming into play from next season. Today at St George's Park, there have been researchers talking about the underpinning insight that's led to these changes, people from the Football Association whose role it is to lead and support development of the game at a grassroots stage, as well as coaches and coach developers from across the game. We've also had lots of children coming and playing in the indoor football pitch. So it's been a really interesting opportunity to understand a little bit more about what has led to these changes and to talk to people about how they think it might be introduced at a grassroots level so more coaches are able to understand and then bring into play how this game works and how the format works with the children that they're coaching. Throughout the day today, I've been lucky enough to speak to former England international players, coaches, coach developers, and FA people exploring what this means to them. We talked about what is 3v3 football, why the FA have made the decision to introduce this change, the benefits of 3v3, children's rights, what to expect from being in the shoes of a child, why winning's important, but other things are too, the different roles that adults will play in the introduction of this format, from pitch facilitators, assistants, and matchday organisers. And what do we expect to see? How will the game change because of 3v3 football? It's been really interesting to listen to the FA talking about how back in 1999, there was a mini soccer review, which led to pitches being scaled down, goals being scaled down, the rules being altered. A youth development review in 2012, which followed quite a catastrophic performance by the England national team in the World Cup. And then the Future of Youth Football review in 2022. 27 years ago, this movement started, and we're starting to see real change and real age-appropriate activities taking place at the younger ages. And none of this comes without its challenges. The FA need to do a big job in winning hearts and minds of coaches, volunteers, officials, to understand the benefits of playing smaller versions of the game. Of course, there are going to be cynics out there saying this doesn't look much like football, but it's age appropriate, it's child appropriate. And something that I've been really encouraged by today is listening to how voice and choice features so much within the language used by the Football Association, and how by playing the game, children have so much more opportunity to solve their own problems, to make decisions for themselves, to work together as a team, and develop a whole load of skills that they wouldn't get if coaches were dictating everything that happened within the game. A point that I'd love to reflect on within this is, with the change of format, how does that change what practice looks like for anybody who's coaching at a smaller level? And in one of the conversations I had with Andy from the Football Association, he made a point to me that's really stuck with me, that these smaller formats or different formats of the game, so 3v3 to 5v5, sevens, and then into 11s, are all the maximum format of the game available. So if you're coaching 9v9 football, there could still be opportunities within your fixtures, within the way you train, to play smaller sided versions of the game, rather than being limited to the maximum amount of players are allowed on the field. Now, what an exciting opportunity that presents to be able to adapt the size of the groups that you're working with as a development tool. So it's not just about playing with the maximum amount of players available. It's about using the different formats of the game you have at your disposal for different development outcomes. So within our conversations today, it's not one guest for the whole time. There's a conversation with these England internationals, with Andy and Claire from the Football Association, and with some coaches too. So I hope you really enjoy this special and different edition of the Game Plan Coaching Podcast. So I'm joined by Glenn Johnson and Rachel Yankee here at the FA 3v3 Football Showcase event. Glenn and Rachel, tell us a little bit about why we're here today and what's happening in front of us.
We're here today to see the new launch of the 3v3. It was great to see the kids having fun. They're all getting loads of touches of the ball, enjoying themselves, as we can see. It's just nice to be here and see it in action.
Rachel, why is this so important for children to experience a game like this?
Yeah, I think, for me, the important thing is that there are no referees, there's no coaches, no outside influence screaming and shouting at them. They just seem to be having fun. They're taking ownership. They're on that pitch. 3v3s, some nice small-sided games. They've got to make quick decisions under pressure. They've got to really take ownership of the game and those life skills, those teamwork, everything that you need, to be going out there with. They're practicing on the pitch under their own sort of supervision, which is, I think, is a real skill. And I think that builds the character of the players when they get older, progress into bigger football, I suppose, 11-a-side.
Yeah. Glenn, from a technical perspective, why is playing smaller formats really important?
We'll just get more time on the ball. And like Rachel says, they've got small-sided games, not much space, so they have to think quick. And, it's not all about, these kids trying to turn professional or getting into pressured positions in terms of academies. At the minute, it's for them to have fun, but ultimately they're here to, will improve or whatever level that means. But they need to be on the ball, getting more touches, and that's the way you're going to learn. And that's the way you get to make those fast decisions, and it just improves you mentally as a person.
Yeah, it looks fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You can hear them laughing and joking, and they're all charging around. So, they look like they're having a great time.
Rachel, you mentioned about the children taking more responsibility and ownership during the games, because the coaches they're not refereeing, they're not as actively dictating things. If we were to shut our eyes, just sounds like play. Tell us a bit more about why it's important for children to be able to develop those skills where they solve the problems for themselves rather than an adult trying to solve their problems for them.
I think it's huge, whatever you do in life, that you're going to have to take control of situations, and there'll be mistakes or things maybe not going your way and how you want it to. And you've got to be resilient and be able to come back from that, whether you're on the football pitch or just in general life. So these skills are really important. But then when you get to, if they do go on to become footballers and play in some of the biggest stadiums, thousands of people watching, you can't hear the coach anyway, so you've got to make those decisions. So I think this is where the benefit of being able to get your head up, see what's going on, listen to your teammates that are close, taking responsibility, understanding people's strengths and weaknesses, which they all will be doing. Passing the ball to each other, understanding which player likes the ball. Do they want to be a dribbler or are they more of a passer? They're learning that without even realising it. And I think those for me are the benefits. And the social side of it is that they're having fun, they're talking to each other, and they're enjoying themselves and playing. And that's the main thing.
So on the podcast, I'm going to ask you both this question at the same time, so you've got time to think about your answer, and you can choose who goes first.
It'll be Glenn.
On the podcast, I ask every guest who comes on for some game-changing advice that they might offer the listener. So thinking specifically about coaches working with younger players in the smaller formats of the game, is there any advice that you might want to give them to have the best experience as a coach and the best experience with them?
Oh, God.
You've both gone, oh, God.
That's our
answer. I mean, for me, when I'm coaching, I usually just encourage children to be brave. Whatever decision you make, it doesn't end there. There's always something next. So just be brave with your decision and sort of go with that. That's probably, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's something that I would sort of just make sure that children understand that even the best of the best make mistakes. It's just that being brave enough to own that mistake and then move on to whatever the next thing is.
Awesome. I worked with a boxing coach once, and he said, mistakes lead to magic.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's just reframing mistakes is just an opportunity to learn stuff and try it out and build on it. So, I completely hear you. Yeah. You, Glenn, you've had time to think now.
I'm not getting closer, though. I think as Rachel says, it's about being brave enough to handle a certain situation, whether that's getting the ball in maybe a dangerous area and being confident enough to receive a ball when, where you're kind of in no man's land, but having the heart to try it, and you might make mistakes, but like you say, mistakes builds character, and then you got to bounce back from that. So I think just be brave enough to make a mistake and then don't dwell on it. Have the heart to try it again.
Okay. Final question, because I know we've got to finish. Think about your favourite coach that you had from starting the game through to senior success. You don't have to name them if you don't want to, but what did your best coach do for you?
Do you know what? I don't think it was anything to do with tactics or anything like that. Just care. I think it was just actually just caring for you as a person, asking, how you are, making sure that you're all right.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the younger days as well. Yeah, just coaches let us have fun. Didn't put too much pressure on games. We enjoyed training. I mean, I said to someone earlier, like, I don't think you can be good at anything in life unless you love it. So the fact that the coaches allowed us to fall in love with the game probably helped us, go on and work as hard as we did because we was in love with the game.
Awesome. Glenn, Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice one.
All right, Claire, who are you and what do you do for the FA?
So I'm Claire Daniels, Senior National Development Manager for Solutions and Innovations. So the role of my team is to create modern, fit-for-purpose interventions for the football pathways.
Awesome. And we've got lots of kids playing 3v3 football in front of us.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the day that we're at?
So we've got a load of children here that adopted 3v3 a season early. And we're just coming to, I guess, the end of that first season's journey for them. And it's a real opportunity for everybody here today to just show how children can run these games, play football. Every child can play. Everyone has a smile on their face. Physical activity is off the scale. And your adult role is, it's not complicated. It's not chaotic. They're really calm and chilled out and just enjoying themselves to close off their season.
So why is the FA introducing 3v3, if that's not a really obvious question?
So the game has stayed, the same since 1999 when we introduced the formats that we've got now, so 5, 7, 9 and 11. And the game's in a really, really strong place. Got good playing numbers, got good volunteering numbers. But I think, as the National Association for Football, we needed to do some due diligence and just have a look at, is there anything else that we could be doing for young children? So we've undertaken a lot of research. We've surveyed every European nation. We've recorded 400 grassroots games for girls and the mixed pathway, and just looked at all the data to understand, is there anything else that we can do that's going to make a real difference for children? And the answer was yes, we can introduce 3v3 and we can get every single child that comes into football playing for 100% of their time and learning skills such as decision making, leadership, communication, social skills that they won't get anywhere else, and they do it through a format which is football, which they love inherently.
And like some of the words you just said about developing leadership skills, accountability, it feels really holistic, the approach that the FA are taking. We're talking about football, but we're also talking about the young people taking part.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can start to get a real appreciation of the challenges that referees make when they're making decisions playing, as they move through the pathway, there's going to potentially be a real positive impact on the behaviours that we see. Which is just positive for everybody. The other consequential benefits of this is without needing referees in the under-7s age group, you free them up to go in the upper ends of the pathways. So it solves a resource problem that we had somewhere else. And these kids are more than capable of doing this. They do it on the playground, they do it on the streets. We used to play it on the streets.
Yeah.
You don't need an adult telling you how to do it.
You might get some entrenched cynics. Some people out there saying, this doesn't look like football. It's not the way I played. My coach told me what to do all the time and I needed them to shout instructions from the side. I'm being a bit cynical, but there will be some people like that who have a view similar to that or parts of that view. How can we overcome that so more kids get to play small-sided football where they're kind of reaping the benefits of everything you've explained so far?
Number one mantra that we're saying, and we have said all along, it's almost like a Santa Claus moment, that seeing is believing. You have to come and see this to understand that A, it's possible and it's really easy, and B, the technical and physical returns that the kids are getting. You can't deny the number of touches, the number of goals scored, the number of defensive actions, all of the things that you would want your players to have. So you can give a coach a choice. You can either have 20 hours of your children playing 100% football, or potentially you can carry on at 5v5 where there'll be subs for half, so that's already reduced to 10 hours. And, they probably realistically would get five 5 hours of that playing time. So which one would you want to have? Which kid in the long term is going to be in a much better place? If you want better players, this is the way to go.
Yeah, nice. On one of the slides that Andy shared earlier, there was this timeline of mini soccer being introduced in 1999, the Youth Development Review in 2012, which I think came about after England lost terribly to Germany, and it was an awful World Cup performance. And then the Future of Youth Football Review, which took place in 2022. So that was 11 years between the first two, 12 between the next. So if we are sat here in 10 to 12 years' time, what do you hope we'd be talking about?
Well, the first thing is that we haven't waited 12 years to do another review.
Fair, yeah.
I think that's one of the big shifts that we're looking to make. We don't want to be waiting that amount of time because we're doing children a disservice. We know that there's so many more things that we can do, and those things would benefit children. We just need to be in a position where we have the foundations, which we do now, and then we can start to look at tweaking and implementing other things that are going to benefit player development.
Nice. Waiting 12 years. That's the whole of primary school childhood, really, exactly. Isn't it? And plus. Okay, I'm going to ask you some really tangible questions. So on the podcast, I always ask my guests for some game-changing advice, something that other coaches or coaches listening to this could go and apply or adapt or just reflect on for their own practice. So for the coach who's listening to this, who works with younger players, not necessarily 3v3, but in particular the coaches who are working with kids who are primary school age, what are some practical ideas that they could try out when they're working with children that really increase the enjoyment, the participation and the engagement of kids?
So my first one would be embrace the chaos and start to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The more you can do that, the more children will speak to you and open up and share their ideas around the things that they want to see and want to take part in. You know, at the end of the day, we're here to give young children a really good experience of football. You won't know what that is unless you're willing to embrace it and ask them. So that is my number one comment that I can make in terms of each of these children will have an idea of what they want to get out of football. So listen and try and build those things in for them.
Yeah, nice. When I went to one of the regional 3v3 showcase events, the person leading it was showing some top trump style cards with different player qualities, not necessarily technical qualities, but like what the young people like, what they enjoy, what their interests are out of football. And it's given me an idea as I take on my son's under-17 for next season about how do we create some of these cards with the players. We can use it as a coach to get to know them better, but also the children feel like they owe some stuff.
Yeah, I think the more you can understand your players, the better. And I know exactly the cards that you talk about, like, you know, there's one that loves unicorns is one of the examples. And, you know, that stuff's gold dust. If I understand a child loves unicorns, how can I use that to build a relationship? Now, look, when they become 14, 15, they might not still love unicorns, but what you've done over the years is built a relationship with those players whereby you understand who they are more than just the player on the pitch, but the child that they embody for the rest of the week that they're with us.
And you remember that stuff as a kid, I think, as well. Like you would remember your top trumps card and the conversation you had with your coach and the fun you had with it, possibly more than the medal that you won.
Yeah, of course you would. Like I think back now, I don't remember the medals or the trophies or the events and the things that you went to. You remember the moments that meant something, and those moments can either be positive or negative. So the challenge you pose out to your listeners is, what choices and decisions are you going to make to be a really positive, memorable coach? Because nobody wants to be remembered as a child's last coach.
Barry, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm manager Barry Ryan. Come from Altrincham, play called Timperley. My daughter plays for Altrincham FC. We're down at obviously St George's Park today to participate in some 3v3 football action. And let the girls and the boys have some fun together.
So before we hit record, you were just telling me you wear a few hats.
Yeah, I wear a few hats. Yeah, I'm obviously here today as a parent. I also manage my son's team as well. We are an under 11s team, obviously up in Altrincham as well. So I've been on that journey with him through 5v5 to 7 to 9v9. We didn't actually, obviously, because it's just been introduced, the 3v3 format. So getting to see that with my daughter through her eyes and through her team's experience, it's been fantastic, really. It's been really good to kind of watch it and see it in action.
What do you like about 3v3?
The best thing for me about the 3v3 is the small-sided format, small pitches, lots of touches on the ball, really fast-paced as well. Like, it's end-to-end. It's like watching an ice hockey game. As soon as someone scores, they've got to run back and touch the post, and then before you know it, they're on top of you and they're trying to score. It's probably great to play in as a child, but actually to watch it as a participant and a parent, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, love the action.
So if there's parents or there's coaches who are listening to this a little bit sceptical about 3v3, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that scepticism. I know that there is a bit of that about in terms of the format and what it's going to be like, and obviously having no goalkeeper. But I just think if you haven't seen it, watch it, or just try it out at your training sessions, and I think you'll be surprised at how not so much how good it is just to watch, but how much the kids enjoy playing it as well. My daughter wasn't particularly showing any interest in football whatsoever. Suddenly, decided one day she wanted to play it. We thought it'd be a little bit of a fad, so we took her down and thought, 3 or 4 weeks later she'd give it up. So she was straight into 3v3 format, and it's really helped to build her confidence. She's really enjoyed playing with other girls and being part of a league and part of a team, and all the benefits that come with it as well. And I don't think she would have probably got as much love for the format if it had been 5v5, because she wouldn't have had the positional awareness, she wouldn't have had as many touches on the ball, probably wouldn't have scored as many goals, which kids love as well. So yeah, it's been great for to build her enjoyment and love of playing football as well.
Oh, I love that. So when you're at games at the weekend, what do you notice happening from the side? Is winning games just as important as it has been in 5v5s, 7v7s, or does other stuff start to show up?
Yeah, the score doesn't seem to really matter too much, to be honest. I think for the girls, it's been more about kind of like just the enjoyment of it, being together as a team, supporting each other, working hard for each other. And just all those things that come from 11v11 football, really. And obviously the reason why we all love it and we all want to be part of it in the first place, it's just that sort of, that togetherness. And I think obviously the speed of the game is really quick, and I think that's going to settle up for further down the line as the format changes and the pitches grow, etc.
So final question on the podcast, I always ask guests for some game-changing advice. So as a dad and as a coach, being that parent coach, is there any advice you give to others who play that role where their kids are taking part in maybe the sessions that they're coaching?
That's a good one. I'd say from my own experience, it's probably just letting the kids enjoy it, really, not putting too much pressure on them, letting them get, my biggest touch would be letting them get a touch on the ball as quickly, as early, as many touches as quickly on the ball as early in the session as possible. I would probably, my lesson over the last few years for my training sessions has been probably try and play a match as soon as possible as well in the session, and get that out of the way as early as possible, because you don't have to spend the next 50 minutes, 55 minutes answering the question, when are we going to play a match? So that'd be my tip.
So, throughout the day, the FA shared lots of insight on the journey to get to 3v3 football, the benefits of the game, and what they're hoping to get from the changes. So, they highlighted that this has been a long time coming. From Nice Soccer in 1999, the Youth Development Review in 2012, the Future of Youth Football Review in 2022, 3 landmark moments over 25 years. The youth game has and always will continue to evolve. 3v3 is the next step, not the last one. So 3v3 works, and for 4 simple reasons. The FA's case is straightforward, and it's really hard to argue with. Every player has an impact on the game. The game provides lots of opportunities to score and stop goals. It's fun, and it's fast, and it's forward-thinking. And finally, 3v3 encourages creativity. It's quite compelling, really, especially for a 6 or 7-year-old and their first experience of football. The FA's framework is very holistic. It links back to the 4-corner model, which many football coaches will recognise. But what I really liked was how psychology, the psychological corner, and the social corner were put at the top of the FA's 4-corner matrix. So from a psychological perspective, 3v3 helps maintain emotional control. Children make their own decisions. build a lifelong love of learning. Socially, there's so many opportunities to make friends, build relationships, feel comfortable talking to others, which is such an important part of sport, which can be overlooked sometimes. Physically, 3v3 is the start of foundational movement, fun, equals, active, and also some really demanding movements in 3v3, especially when players have to retreat back to their goal after a goal is scored. And technically and tactically, as Glenn mentioned earlier in the podcast, exploring the ball, feeling confident, getting lots of touches. We're developing the whole child within this format of the game, not just the footballer. There was a slide that summed it up really well. Every child is active, every child is involved, and every minute matters. So if you coach young players, write those 3 lines down somewhere that you'll see them. The FA really want to encourage coaches to think about 8 different principles. Create a positive and safe environment, set simple, clear goals, use invasion game-like practices, encourage ownership and choice, develop movement skills, embrace the chaos, promote me and the ball, support, observe, and facilitate. And that last one's maybe a big shift. It's a really important one. Facilitating the environment, supporting the players, and observing practices. The art of noticing is going to be so important for coaches working in 3v3 football. And as part of this process, the FA did something that I think is really positive and bold. They asked children what adults on the sideline look and feel like for them from where the kids are standing. And the answers were really worth hearing. They highlighted that there are some aggressive adults, parents getting too heated, booing, jeering, win at all cost attitudes. And children had described that as intimidating and stressful. Why wouldn't it be? Some children highlighted that some adults are distracting. Excessive shouting, overcoaching, critical comments, being on top of the pitch. I mean, you wouldn't see adults doing that in any other part of a child's life. So why should it happen in football? And what do kids want? They want adults who encourage them, support them, celebrate them, while giving them the space to play, learn, and enjoy football. Simple. And yet sometimes it doesn't happen. But we've got to listen to what the children have to say. Parents are so important. They're such an important stakeholder in this whole picture. And the FA highlighted today that they are going to find different ways to support parents and carers to champion children's rights and uphold the spirit of the game. Seeing the game through the eyes of the child, being a positive and supportive role model, working together and supporting each other. That defines the role of the parent really, really clearly. That's going to be so helpful for coaches when they're building those relationships with the parents of the children that they coach. So for coaches wanting to get ready, the FA have got a really clear roadmap. Local 3v3 festivals, face-to-face CPD delivered through the county FA. There'll be a 2-part digital coaches conference happening in May and then later in July. And then the coaching courses, the UEFA C diploma, the introduction to coaching football will be updated to take into account the changes to the game. So much insight, but we need to remember 3v3 creates an environment that players love and remember. That's the brief.
I'm joined by Andy Dyke from the FA. Andy, what do you do here?
So Tom, I work within our player experience team, within our grassroots division, and my role is really about looking at, particularly for the male player pathway, how do we provide boys and then through to adulthood, men with the best experience we can provide of football. So from the time that they first experience it through to the latter stage of their playing careers, how do we improve that experience to maintain the enjoyment for as long as possible?
Yeah, cool. When you were talking earlier, you were sharing some information on adults' role within 3v3 football. So would you just explain a little bit about the different roles on match days in the new 3v3 format?
Absolutely, yeah. So 3v3 is going to look different, and adults are going to play a really important role in shaping the environment, really, that we want 3v3 to be embraced with it. We're still going to have teams being formed, and there's still going to be the role of a team manager and their assistant who will run the training on a Tuesday night and do the kind of the role as it's often seen to be. But I guess what we're asking for is a slightly evolved role of a pitch facilitator come Saturday, Sunday morning when match day comes around. And really what that pitch facilitator role is, it's really important. First and foremost, I think the context is important. We won't have referees. We're going to have lots of pitches underway. We don't need a match official kind of getting involved. And what we're really looking to do is empower young players to self-officiate but they need some support along the way, and that's the role of a pitch facilitator. Make sure the environment is safe, and that where an understanding of the rules needs to be applied, they can kind of appropriately question and work with the players to ensure that the environment is being, formed in the way that we want it to be. Players are safe, and that the rules are being applied as consistently as we can be when we're dealing with 6-year-olds. Aside from that, the big thing is they wear a big smile. They bring an energy, they create an environment, and I think what's really exciting about the pitch facilitator role is it doesn't necessarily have to be the very traditional view of a coach. It can be somebody who wants to support football and making it happen, can engage really positively with young people, and knows the simple basic rules of how 3v3 works, and we've got videos and things that explain that. So fundamentally, it's create a safe environment, help the players understand and apply the rules themselves, bring a positive energy, and then the last bit is the simple logistics of lots of fixtures are taking place with really simple patterns of movement between games, but just making sure kids know where they need to be, where they, and when, and that's kind of the role of a pitch facilitator.
I recall when I was working at Arsenal a few years ago, we used to do the same when we ran tournaments and festivals, that we wouldn't have any officiating. It would be self-led by the players. And it was definitely met by some pushback by some of the parents or some of the coaches of the teams that we came to play against, because it was different to what they'd always experienced. Yeah. Now, I can fully imagine, right, with my glass slightly half empty, there may be some coaches and teams who find this harder than others to get on board with or to get used to. So imagine this scenario, right? We're playing 3v3, it's October, pitch facilitators are doing their role, but a coach from another team stepping in a little bit too much. They're being quite instructional and they are taking over, taking it away from the kids. If you were one of the pitch facilitators in the environment, how would you work with that?
So I think it's a really good scenario, and probably quite a realistic one that I think we will ultimately see in the coming months as this gets rolled out. Because I think firstly you have to reflect on the dynamic of a coach that has been created within grassroots football and what's deemed to be good coaching sometimes, not necessarily centrally, but people's own perception. And if I'm not winning games, I'm not coaching well, and if I'm not seen to be coaching, I'm not coaching well. And I think there's an element therefore of how we educate coaches to understand what they can play. But then in that very specific piece, I'd probably go down a distraction approach of starting to have a conversation with that coach about, okay, well, what's coming up next in our kind of fixture kind of movements, maybe compliment them on some of their players and understand a little bit more about what they're doing, because fundamentally we want the kids to be playing and for the adult engagement to be relatively minimal. And it should get almost to the point where, as coaches, you're not adversaries and opponents. You're coming together collectively to ensure that, as often termed opposing coaches, are working collaboratively to ensure the kids within their, care for that hour or so are having the best experience possible. So I'd almost take it as a moment to go, okay, this is working really well. Is there anything we just need to tweak? Is there anything we can be doing differently? In order to try and get them to think about a few different things, but also probably just distract them away from feeling like they've got to kind of be on the sideline giving lots and lots of instructions. So stealth is probably the tactic I'm going with there.
Fair dues. No, I hear you. And look, final thing I'm thinking about is, inside you were showing this lifespan, if you like, of a young player coming through the system, playing 3v3 at under 7s and moving into under 5s and so on and so on. And I'm thinking about players who maybe don't start playing as a 6-year-old, as a 7-year-old, and maybe their first experience when they're slightly older, they might be 9 or 10 playing the game. How can 3v3 potentially be used by coaches playing bigger formats as a way of introducing players into the game?
Yeah, so first and foremost, when we talk about our pathway of 3v3, 5v5, 7v7, 9v9, these are maximum formats that can be participated in at those particular age groups. And I think we always actively encourage clubs, leagues, etc. to consider the variety that gives in some of the older age groups. So if 9v9 is your maximum format, that also means that in your toolbox, you've got 7v7, 5v5 and 3v3. And to your point, how can those different formats be used to support different players? Because, I mean, I've got it very close to home. My nephew's going to be starting football for the first time next season in a proper team, club environment. And he's going to secondary school at the same time. So he's going to be going into an environment whereby he's going to be playing in a format that may be a stretch beyond his kind of initial experience, and utilising formats like 3v3, 5v5, etc. could be great ways of providing them with high kind of, access to the ball, because the risk is that you go into an environment where they don't have a lot of ball time in those kind of larger formats comparatively. So using those smaller formats, considering the role that they can play in bringing not just the players who are maybe new to the game, but existing players, because as you'll know, different formats are going to give differing returns. And the more variety we can provide those players, it's not just going to be the new players coming in. Those that have been playing since six are still going to benefit from that variety as well. So, yeah, absolutely. We want them to be seen as maximum formats that can be applied alongside a range of other formats as well.
The way you put that now, and you said it inside, maximum format, for me, it's like a little asterisk.
Yeah, we probably need to be clearer with it. So I think for a lot of people, they do look at it and they see it and they see it on a pathway and go, oh, well, next season we're playing 5v5 and in 2 years' time we're going to play 7v7. Well, yeah, that's the maximum format you'll play to. We'd love to see a world in which that's the maximum format alongside a diet that is a little bit more varied than that as well. And there's plenty of work to do in that space, but there's some really good practice out there of that happening already, but for that to become more normalised is somewhere, yeah, we'd love to see us get to.
On the podcast, I ask every guest for some game-changing advice, something that the listeners might apply or edit or just reflect on. What's your game-changing advice for coaches?
So I think it's probably been said before, and I'd like to think that, you know, this comes through loud and strong, but it's you've got people in front of you that will give you the best response or the best feedback and research, and that's the kids. But do we often ask them what they're thinking, what their preference is, how can we change things to work better for them? So I think it's using that more than we probably do. And we probably do it, some will do it brilliantly, but even those that do it brilliantly could always do it more. And I think it's reflecting how often you're doing it, and not only how often you're doing it, but how often you're acting upon it. So that for me would be my game-changing advice, which I'm sure has been shared by many guests in the past, but it's an important thing to reflect on.
Have you seen any coaches find a really creative way to capture the voice of kids?
I think it's something that we probably need to work a little bit more on. I think it happens in the margins a lot of the times. It's that moment where when you have that one-on-one conversation with a child, it's about as much as you can to understand them, understand their experience of the game and the context within which that sits and what we can do to develop that. So that's probably where I would try and be doing it. But I think there's probably a little bit more of a formulated way that we could do it a little bit more effectively as well. But yeah, if anyone's got any ideas, I think that's a best practice sharing piece that I think would be really valuable. And
my mind goes off to coaches just maybe being more attuned to noticing stuff which is going on.
Absolutely.
You don't have to ask. You might just see quickly who's engaged, who's not, who's smiling,
Couldn't
who's
agree more.
talking more. If they come back next week, it's
This
back
is
in itself.
Indeed.
So go on, Rachel. Tell me that again. What did you just share with me?
So last year I was awarded a BEM for the King's New Year Honours List for development of girls football. So I started my football journey as a coach over 15 years ago. Whereas a group of girls in local schools from a company we used to work for who just wanted to play football. At that point, there's no opportunities locally for any girls to go and play in any club. So I approached my local football club at the time, was Altrincham Juniors, around potentially having an upcoming girls team who would potentially go and play for a club. So I started that journey over 15 years ago with only 8 girls to now we've got nearly 650 girls, pushing 700 girls playing for the club each week.
Wow, what an achievement. Well, first of all, congratulations on being
Thank you.
knighted. That is incredible, and it sounds like you're doing some amazing things for the grassroots game. So tell us about 3v3 and your experiences of it.
So 3v3, a bit like everyone, how is it going to work? First couple of weeks, there's a little bit of teaming problems in terms of the structure, how we're going to run it, where we're going to run it. But the progression of the girls and each and a single player from where we started in September to now is absolutely phenomenal. I love 3v3. I love the no substitutions, smaller goals. I think it's brought more of the management community together. Obviously, we have superstar teams who play each week. So if anything, I think the connection for management coaches who have probably spent more time with each other this year than what we would do in a normal home and away situation. We as a league have run central football, so everything's central based. I might say for me personally, I think it's brought the girls on from a social aspect, but as well as a playing aspect as well. So each team, not about going to play with the girls, but no, definitely progression in the girls, the progression in the development, how they started from September to now. They're managing their own games. They know their own rules more than what we do. But now I hope it's a kickstart and there'll be a lot more girls who are obviously going to develop massively with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So after a year of trying out 3v3, what have you learned?
What we've learned is it's absolutely the correct thing for the FA to implement this. Look, like I say, the biggest factor for me is no substitutions. There's nothing worse than turning up on the sideline. You've got 3 kids who you can't get on the pitch. I think it's about adapting at that point, at that situation. So, a 3v3 can become 2v2. But, each player's playing maximum minutes of game time every single week, which absolutely will bring them on more as players than what they already are.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So on our podcast, we always ask our guests to share some game-changing advice for coaches. Excuse me, something other coaches might go and apply or tweak or just reflect on. So what would be your game-changing advice?
My game-changing advice is roll with it. Absolutely encourage your teams, your coaches, your managers, your clubs to get behind this 3v3 format, and you'll see that success at the end of the season once obviously you've had a year at it. It's absolutely huge for girls, boys, and it's a game-changing opportunity for development of football for all.
So there we go. Lots of interesting insights and perspectives on the introduction of 3v3 football into the under-7 game next season. So this has been a really special episode recorded at St George's Park, the FA's Showcase 3v3 event. And we've had multiple conversations through the day from England internationals, FA staff, coaches and parents sharing their take on what is one of the most significant changes to grassroots football in a generation. 3v3 matters. There'll be no referees, no coaches dictating from the sidelines, just children playing football. More touches, more decisions, more joy. The FA have been working on this for years with research, reviews, conversations. It feels like a really good moment to introduce this to the game. For me, the language coming from the FA about voice and choice is really exciting. Children owning their experience and creating the conditions for adults maybe to get out of the way a little bit, letting the game breathe. If we get this right at the young ages, the ripple effect for the next 10 to 15 years could be enormous. More children staying in the game for longer, falling in love with football on their own terms and developing as people, not just players. Something that really stuck with me from the day was something that Claire from the FA said. I've been thinking about this quite a lot all day. Nobody wants to be remembered as a child's last coach. That's the stakes. That's what it's really about. So, you might have heard Glenn Johnson and Rachel Yankee talking about why caring about a child as a person matters more than any tactic you'll ever teach them. Claire and Andy from the FA talked about why 3v3 isn't just a format change, it's a shift in philosophy. And Barry, the parent coach, talked about what this looks like from the sideline. He was really honest, a really grounded perspective. So this isn't just about a smaller game. It's a bigger opportunity for more play, for more decisions for children, for more enjoyment for children, and for coaches to trust that when you step back, really good things happen. I hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the Game Plan Coaching Podcast.